Hi, it's Gadget UK here again, back with another TerribleFire card, the TF520. So this was the first card that Stephen produced. It's simply an A20 accelerator. That's all it provides. No RAM, no IDE or anything else, just an A20. So of course it's going to be limited. You can have a bottleneck there on the 24-bit DMA RAM. There's no dedicated fast RAM for this processor, so yeah, it's going to run faster. I've got a 25 megahertz crystal. Now the board's marked 20, so that might be the first issue. It might not work. We'll give it a try anyway. I do know that the CPU I'm going to put on here is the one that I originally had on my individual computers, A1220, and that would run up to, I think, about 40 megahertz roughly. It got quite hot, but it would run that fast. I did swap it out for a 33 megahertz chip. Or was it a 25? I might have swapped it for a 25 and ran it at 33, I think. But anyway, the chip that's for this, I think, is 16, so pushing it to 25, yeah, it's pushing it a little bit, isn't it? But it should be okay. So you can see I've got the little Schmidt trigger down here, voltage regulator, crystal, all of the caps and things, resistors. These are reclaimed, actually. They came off something I recapped, and one or two of the caps that took off I ESR tested, and they're alright, so I'm just using them on this. It's better than throwing them away. So I've shown stuff like this on lots of other videos. I'll stick some links up there to the TF330 and the TF1260, and you may have seen the TF536, and you may have seen the TF530 as well. So yeah, a number of videos. I haven't shown everything on all of them. The TF330 is perhaps one of the best videos to watch because I think I covered a bit of everything on that. Or you can check out the A3640 video I did. I'm just going to get that straightly aligned. Pin 1 is down here. I'm just going to anchor it in a couple of corners, and then I'll just show you the drag solder in there, and then this final stage is really jumpers, socket, and pin headers here. This socket, you can see I modified it because it had this row here where there's holes, can you see, and here populated, so it wasn't quite the right socket, and it's just a case of getting some fine nose pliers and get the socket the right way around, you know, push down onto the flat part of the pin, press really hard carefully, and then it pushes through a little bit on this surface here, and then you can grip it with some sharp nose pliers and it just pulls out. So yeah, I did pull those pins out to form this socket so that it's correct for the profile here. There you go, fits perfectly. I'm just going to heat this pin here again and just try and move it a little bit. Let's try that. Yeah, it's a little bit, I'm not sure if that's a little bit crooked or not. I'll just inspect the magnification. So that's spot on. Let's just get a little bit of flux all around this. And I want to get a little bit of solder on the tip here. Not too much there actually. And do a little bit of drag soldering. Well, I've got too much there, I'm just going to get rid of the solder. You need very little on these. If you get quite a large blob initially in one corner, stop, wipe the solder off your tip, and then just drag what's already there. You can see I've got that just about right there. That side is nice and clean. Just for good measure, we'll just give it another flow from the bottom. Yeah, there you go, perfect. So I'll do the same over this side here. Now there's a little bit of solder already on there from where it was anchored, because this side here was anchored. There you go, you can see that, nice and clean. There you go, I'm not sure if you saw that, I was perhaps just off camera there. Let's just do this side. Still got a little bit of solder on this, just a bit more. So we'll try this side now. So just dab in, drag along. There you go, look at that, lovely. And the final side, again, a tiny little bit, there's probably a little bit on there already again. And again, let's just do a little drag. There we go, and then just bob in and bob out. And that was really easy compared to some of the other ones I've done. Right, let's get the socket on. I'll just anchor it in the corner here. I'm just going to press the socket flat. Anchor over here, do the same thing. You want to get this right the first time, because if you have to remove it, the traces and pads and things are really small here. Just inspect it to make sure it's flat and it is correct. Yeah, and we've got a pin through every hole. If you've modified the socket like I had to here, obviously that's important. If you took a pin out that you need, you really don't want to get to the end and find you're missing that pin. So as you can see, I've plugged the strips of pin head here into a socket. That just allows me, you know, some support on this to get this nice and straight. So I'll anchor a couple of diagonal opposites, and I'll do the other diagonal opposites once I've got it confirmed straight, because at the moment it's just kind of floating there. So if I just like press the two together, sandwich them together, look, you can see it move there. Just inspect, nice and straight. Same up here. See that one move? Yeah, it looks like it's on there, but it's not. There we go, nice and straight. So again, we'll do these corners here. And then again, I'll just do the same thing. And then we'll just do the same thing, just press, just to make sure, oh, again it moved, look. That's incredible. It looked totally flat to me. Obviously it wasn't. That'll do. I can just whiz along the connections there now. Right, we are all done, programmed up. The jumpers that are not there, this one here is for external 3.3, so you can power it, you know, separately to program it. That's CDIS, that's cache disable. The one up here, I was puzzled by this, it just says JP7, but if you trace the pads, it goes between ground and 5 volts. I think this is if you want to power it via 5 volts, you know, rather than you powering the, you know, the 3.3 volt side here. So anyway, we need to clean it up yet, but let's just get the processor in, and we'll go give it a try. So pin 1 is down here. Yeah, I can see that on the silk screen, and that matches the profile of the extra pin there. Now this chip has had a solder on it in the past. I could have soldered it, or should have soldered it maybe straight on, but I removed the solder previously when I swapped that processor for another one. Hopefully those pins went in there and that snapping noise wasn't something breaking, but I don't think so. Let's go and give it a try. I'll try it on a 500 first. So I've got it in my main A2000 here. Let's give it a try, see if it works. Bear in mind we've not got IDE, you'd need to add some sort of IDE or SCSI interface. I could maybe try it with the A2091. I'm just curious to see if it's any more successful regards support of RAM, because this machine has got 8 meg of RAM in the CPU socket. So let's switch it on and let's see if we get a boot. No, we got a red screen, look. So there we go. It doesn't like this machine, does it? It worked on the second boot. Now interestingly, that's one thing I found with this in the 500, is that you can, but it's not looking at the floppy drive. Floppy drive is connected. So, yeah, it's not booting from floppy. That is weird. That is really weird. Why would it not boot from floppy? Oh, hang on, that's a blank disk. That explains why it won't boot from floppy. Let's try it, sys check. Yeah, I think with the 520, bear in mind, it was a really early prototype. If you reboot it a few times, you know, Control, Amiga, you'll find it works. And that's exactly what I found on the other board. So there we got 8 meg. It's just a question of, will it work? Will it give us an error? Because I found errors when you got onto the, you know, the 8 meg of fast there. It was coming up with errors on the 500. But it might be more compatible than the 2000 here. And in fact, it's looking that way, isn't it? So I would suggest, if you're going to build a 520, perhaps don't target the 500. You've obviously got lots less space in there. It seems a lot less compatible with RAM boards and things. But in a 2000 like this, the A520 seems to be quite happy, actually. We'll test it with the A2091 while we're here, because you know what, if SCSI worked as well, that's quite a nice little upgrade. Just to shove in the CPU slot there, you can still add your RAM cards by the looks of things, and if SCSI works, you know, great. And if you haven't got SCSI, you could fit a Butter IDE or something like that, and you know, and get a nice 20 to 33 megahertz 020, because this will run. You know, I've had this running at 25 and it runs dead cool. And I've had it running at 33 and it just gets lukewarm. If you were to heatsink it, it would run at 33 reliably, I'm sure. Yeah, so I'll let that go around once, as you can see. No problems at all, it's happy with that RAM. It will coexist with the MKL RAM board, something that the 536 wouldn't do in this board, if you've seen the 536 video. So we'll try now with booting McBoots, and we need to set the RAM to 0. I mean, technically we could leave it, because, oh, I'm not so sure actually, because the MKL board is probably not going to do auto config normally. So hang on a minute, I need to remove one of the slots from the end, don't I? Yeah, what I mean is I need to remove one of these covers, or I can't plug anything in. I'm going to go with this one here just because it might cause us some interesting problems, because I found the further along you go there, the less likely of something working actually. It's not so bad if you've got the slots in between filled, but what I wouldn't do on an A2000 from my experience is just go right to the very far slots here, because it's further away. It stands to reason, you know, you're going to get some timing issues with that distance. Oh my goodness, what is... Oh look, cap's catching here now. Let's just move that fan out of the way. There we go. Now let's smash the caps off there. Make sure these wires aren't getting trapped, and they aren't. Push it in. Let's just move that over there a little bit. Let's see what happens. Please don't blow up. Red screen again, so I'll cycle the power. Yeah, that 520 doesn't seem to be happy when you first power it on, does it? It's booting. Booting from floppy. So I left the test disk in there. Oh, look, the RAM's disappeared now. The RAM has disappeared. That's weird, isn't it? That's an incompatibility between the MKL board, I think. Could also be because it's using that last slot. I might need to move it down a slot, thinking about it. So I've moved it a slot further down, just on the basis that I'm not 100% sure, but the auto config might be causing a problem with that slot. See if the RAM's back. Yeah, it is, look. There we go, that's what that is. So, all seems to be well, apart from that error we just got. If I remove the floppy and we do a restart, let's see what happens. System reset. And its LED is on all the time. That makes me think it's a clash with the MKL RAM board, actually, still. Something like that. We could try just cycling the power. Yeah, that's the problem we're getting here. Now, it could well be that MKL RAM board not liking the auto config. So let's remove that. Oh, it's a nightmare working on this. Seriously, I'm going to disconnect everything. Right, let's try again. So MKL RAM board out. Got my red screen again. Switch it off, switch it on. I've got the boot and set to 2 meg again here. Yeah, I think if you could do a keyboard reset, you'll probably find it boots straight up, actually. It's doing the same thing again, where it's just looking at the IDE LED and doing nothing. So it would seem that the A520 doesn't like Zorro devices either. But bear in mind, before you start being negative in the comments down below, it was a prototype. This was not designed to be a plug-and-play thing that was guaranteed to work on all different Amiga motherboards, anything like that. If anything, there was more emphasis on getting the core code correct, ready for the future, you know, the incarnations that followed, like the 520 and the 530. Stephen was testing it in the Atari ST, wasn't he, to get some of the bugs ironed out. So yeah, it's not a great board. It was an achievement. It was a technical achievement in the life, if you like, or the evolution of the TerribleFire boards. But yeah, I wouldn't be in a rush to go and build a 520 now, unless you wanted to stick it in an ST. I think with the ST firmware, you should find it works okay, you know, because you've just got the standard, you know, maximum of 4 meg in an ST. You know, this board doesn't add any additional RAM or anything like that, and it would just boost the performance of an ST. But in the Amiga, it seems a little bit less practical. You could just stick it in a 500 to give you a processor boost there, and it will work with the chip RAM and slow RAM. I've proven that. That's not an issue. But as soon as you start adding these things like the MKL board or the Live2 Gotta Go Fast RAM board and anything that's Zorro related, yeah, it's not a happy bunny. So one thing the A520 does like is the A2091 when it's on an A500 motherboard. I don't know, I can't explain it. This is one of the things I seriously hate about the 500 and the 2000. You can see it's flashing away there, it's booting, no worries at all. And I bet the RAM's alright as well. Try and get compatibility between boards like this. I don't know how Stephen's managed to get such good compatibility. He has, to be honest. Yeah, even that hasn't worked, look. It's just frozen there. It has just frozen. So even that pair together, I'm not that happy. I'll give it another few tries, because I've found that the 520 seems a little bit more robust as it warms up. Well, I'm not sure you're going to believe this, and I'm not sure I believe it actually. Let's turn that down a little bit. it's rock solid. The 520 is working with the A590, and the RAM that the A590 provides, it's booted from it. It's been running for half an hour. I've gone in and out of things, loaded demos, started games, done benchmarks. TimeGal's been going for about 15 minutes at the moment. No worries at all. Perfect. Absolutely rock solid. And you may be asking yourself, what did I do? Well, I actually overclocked it. I had originally 25 megahertz, you'll remember, and it was flaky, wasn't it? Hardly anything would work at all. So I thought, okay, it's going to be related to the timing. You know, the logic in the CPLD, so I'm pointing at the CPU there, the logic in the CPLD is going to be timed. You know, you're going to have some divisions going on. Certain signals, the falling and rising edges, are going to directly relate to the clock speed you feed in there. So I had this theory. I thought, well, I've tried 25. I dropped to 20. Sparks UK kindly sent me a 20 megahertz crystal. Tried that. It was a bit better, yeah. And this is the clue. This is what set me off thinking about this this little experiment I've just done. I thought, well, if it's a bit better at 20, maybe if we go slower. And then I thought, well, I don't want to go slower. It's pretty poor performance as it is. Why would I want to go slower? But if we go faster, you're going to get the same thing. The division of a faster clock speed means that the edge, you know, where it triggers on certain rising or falling edge on something, it's going to be shifted just slightly one way or the other, depending on whether you slow it down or speed it up. So I went with 33 megahertz, and you know what? It works perfectly, absolutely perfect. Yesterday I tested numerous times between the two A590s I've got here. I tried the cased one, which has got the older DMAC. Now that would boot from SCSI, but it didn't like the RAM. It would, as soon as you did anything like started a game or something, it would crash, and if you did a RAM test, it would fail on the RAM. So I knew straight away there was something weird going on there, and I would test with this board with a newer DMAC, and it wouldn't even boot, wouldn't even post, you know, wouldn't even do anything, just a black screen. Couldn't get it to boot. But here we are now, the opposite is true. The A590 that's case with the old DMAC will not do anything. It's doing what the other one did yesterday. This one did yesterday. Just a black screen. Doesn't do anything, doesn't flash the LED. You see the flash from the reset, that's it. Nothing. But with the newer DMAC, everything works. Everything works perfectly. I think what I'm going to do now, I mean, this is probably, yeah, it's pretty hot, that. Needs a heatsink. I did run this processor at 33 megahertz on the A1220 for about 4 years, actually. It's warm, it's hot, so it does need a heatsink. Bingo. It works with the fast RAM on the Gotta Go fast RAM board as well. It's fantastic, this. So, yeah, okay, it's only an 020 processor. There's no local RAM. So you're only gaining, I don't know, about 70% or something. And we can do those benchmarks, actually. I can take the disk out, boot it from SCSI again, and we'll just see what it reports in sysinfo and stuff. It's just going to be, obviously I need to connect the thing back up. Hang on a sec. So sorry about the angle grinding there. I'm going to disable the RAM on this first, I think. We'll put it in amnesia mode. We'll connect this back up, and we'll test all three things together. Because in theory they should work. Or is that not booting? I think that's not booting. Let's just try Control Amiga. One thing I have noticed with the 520 is on its first boot it sulks, but you do a Control Amiga, and then more often than not there you go, it's booting C. And ignore what I'm saying, because it's more than that. It is not working with the two together. So yeah, there is a clash there. But the A590 on its own will work, and the Gotta Go fast RAM board will work. But together, when it's starting to boot again now, it's a bit hit and miss, I think. Which kind of makes sense, you know. It's about the impedance and stuff, isn't it? You've got two things going on the bus here with little buffer, and yeah, that's crashed. So let's just enable the RAM again on here. I'll remove that RAM board. So I've got everything back together there, switch it on again. You may find if you tweak your crystal speed just right, everything works. I don't know, but anyway, I'm just very, very pleased that we've managed to get both of these things working independently. Although that's showing no fast mem there, doesn't it? Let's just switch it off. Maybe I've got it in amnesia again, have I? Yes, I have. Put it back into 2 meg. And there we go, boot to the desktop again. We've got our 2 meg now. So let's just have a look in sysinfo. The performance is not going to be staggering because it doesn't have that local RAM, you know, so even though it's running at 33 megahertz, it's probably hardly ever running at 33 megahertz, just when it's doing, I don't know, integer math and stuff like that. So if I do speed, but it's definitely going to be faster than a stock 68K. Yeah, you can see that there compared to an A600, 70% faster, which is kind of what you'd expect. And if you look at an A1200, it's 0.74, so 75% the way towards the performance of an A1200. They're running at 40 megahertz. And of course, that's just a generic test. We're not testing things like RAM and all that. You know, we can do that in a minute. We're going to AIBB. It shouldn't be much faster. If we have a look at the speed of drives, so normally on these you get less than a meg, about 700k, 900k, something like that. Yeah, 975. That's not too bad. It's maybe slightly better than it was. Let's try DH1. Again, they're all on the same compact flash card, so you'd expect approximately the same sort of speed between these different volumes on the drive there. Yeah, just under a meg, isn't it? Interestingly, it shows the clock speed there's 36 megahertz, but as we all know, sysinfo is inaccurate. And of course, maybe you could get a full, I don't know, there is a full A20 that contains an MMU. I'll look into that. I think the MMU for the A20 might have been a dedicated one, actually, a different chip, because I just vaguely remember the official Commodore card having a separate chip for the MMU. But I mean, you can see just from the tests I've done here, it's pretty solid. It doesn't crash or anything. It's just occasionally you may have to reboot it when you first power it on, maybe once or twice. So we'll do a memory test. Can't imagine that's going to be very staggering because we're just using normal chip RAM and stuff here, really. The fast RAM's not really going to gain, I don't think. Yeah, there's a difference there though, look. If you look at U compared to an A600, it's a wee bit faster, not a lot. Clock speed there is shown correct. Let's do an integer math. This is where I'd expect, well, it depends how it's done. I'd expect this to be faster. But if it's, you know, doing stuff in RAM with that integer math, it depends how many RAM access you get, you know, how many cycles between it actually doing the math side of things. If you look there compared to 1200, you know what I mean? It's not that far off, is it? It is not that far off an integer math. So that's quite a nice little performance boost. But of course, there's many better options, you know, just go with a PyStorm or a TF536 or a TF534 or a Witcher, you know, there's just so many different options really. Let's do a sieve. And a sieve there really shows how staggering the performance is actually. You know, so it's got bottlenecks, but when you're not hitting one of those particular bottlenecks, you can see you get really nice boost in performance. It's faster than a 1200 there, which, yeah, alright, it's got the same processor, but you see what I mean though. You can see what I mean. You know, you've got bottlenecks on RAM definitely. Still, I think it's good. I think it's nice. I like it. Just put it out of there. So I'm just going to have a play around with this. I'll play some games on it and stuff, and I'll perhaps report back, let you know how I got on. I've been going for about, I don't know, 10 minutes here. No worries at all. Rock solid. I'm playing so well here, it's incredible. Look at all the lives I've got. I'm up to round 23, and I can assure you there's no cheating going on. I just keep getting all the free lives. Nah, that was close. Well, I finally lost all my lives on that stupid elephant on round 30. I'm not sure what the key is to get out of that. Oh, there we go. It's one of the brackets, I think. So, yeah, I would say that's rock solid. So I'll switch that off. You can hear it's had the June treatment. We'll get a nice heatsink on there. It's not very centralised, that is it. You can see where the paint's been chipped off that. I could always just touch that up with a bit of black acrylic paint. You know what, I might do that actually. It'll just make the processor look a bit better. But yeah, it's not overly hot, but that heatsink will just help dissipate heat. The CPLD here is stone cold. So yeah, you can run these at 33, and I would recommend if you do want to build one of these yourself, just have a bit of a tinker, because it's not a spectacular board, as I say. Go with a 33 MHz crystal, and you should be alright. And in a Rev 6 A2000 board here, it is working fine. I'm using the A2091 here. What I would say is it's happier when it has a companion of some sort. So what I mean by that is when it was just a CPU card on its own, it was failing to boot. It was like glitching and yellow screening and resetting and resetting. I stuck an 8 meg gotta go fast RAM board in here and it worked straight away. Took it back out, glitching again. Put the A2091 in, it's okay. So it seems like it just needs some loading or something, some of the signals there. As soon as you've got like a card of some sort in or RAM expansion, it's happy as anything. 33 MHz runs fine. And the benchmarks on the A2000 there, it's looking similar, isn't it? 781 dry stones, it's 1.5 roughly times faster than an A600. Yeah, there we go, 850k there. Let's just do that again. Yeah, 866. It's worth me just showing you this. This is the problem here. You see, it says it's AIBB is located in 16-bit memory, board memory. Since this is equipped with a 32-bit processor, and this is the thing, unless you've got 32-bit fast RAM, you're not going to gain full speed. You know, it can't really run at full speed. Yeah, look at that. That is incredible. Yeah, we're almost at the same level as an A3025 in terms of that specific functionality there. But yeah, it's marginally faster there, look, than an A600. So yeah, your mileage is going to vary on some of these things. Let's do a dry stone. Yeah, again, it's just marginally faster than a 600. Let's do a sort. Yeah, that's a lot better. Look, that's higher than a 1200, which is what you'd expect because it's 33 megahertz. So strangely, it doesn't like the Live 2 Gotta Go Fast RAM 2000 board here. But I haven't finished reviewing this and checking this out yet. I think Live 2 provided some ALS chips to swap these for, actually, and I know he's still working on the firmware for this, so yeah, don't pay too much attention to that, and I might actually revisit that within the video for that board when we come to look at that. But anyway, nevertheless, this does seem to work quite well when you've clocked it to 33 megahertz in 500s and in 2000s. I will just test it in the Rev 4 2000 board just quickly. So just on its own on that Rev 4 board, it seems less sulky actually. It's not got RAM board or anything attached there, and it's coming up okay. I've only got Kickstart 2 to test on this one. But anyway, I'll test with the A2091 next, and then we'll just give it a thorough going over. So that's with the A2091 in. Let's see what happens now. Just watching the LED up there. Now it's a different version of Kickstart actually. Just look at this, I think only 3.1. Yeah, we got that screen on a Rev 4 board. So that is really weird, isn't it? I can't get this working on the Rev 4 board this way actually. It works on its own, it works with the Gotta Go Fast RAM board I think, but it doesn't work with the A2091. Now it could be because this Rev 4's not got ALS chips here, and I did do a mod to my Booty McBootson here, the A2091, to fit ALS chips because they are more stable, and if you've got them on the motherboard too, that's where you get even more stability. So if you were crazy enough to want to fit a 520 into a 2000, consider doing the ALS mods. You may have to do other mods to try and bring it more in line with a 6.2 motherboard or a 6.4 motherboard. And of course your mileage may vary with other cards. If we had a Buddha IDE board in here, maybe that would work instead of the A2091. So on its own, it's okay there. And with the 8 meg Live 2 board. So yeah, I think in my case here, the reason the 2091's not working is it's about those ALS chips actually. But those ALS chips do work on this board with any other accelerator, and it's rock solid stable. So again, it's about how some of the signals get loaded, I think, depending on what it's connected up to the various buses there. That's what it is. Might not be those ALS chips actually. So I'll just wait for 1.5 to complete, and then I think I'm going to test it with this, the IDE 68K, which you may or may not have seen the video for. I'll post a link up there. And there we go, one full pass, okay. So yes, it's a very basic car. The performance is not staggering, but you know what? It's really nice. I've really enjoyed building this and working on this. And I would say if you're thinking about building a TerribleFire board yourself, or something similarly complex, more complex than this that is, maybe have a go at building one of these first, because the CPLD is far easier to solder. The pitch there is a lot bigger. You know, the pins are further apart than on something like a TF520 or a 536, etc. And there's a lot less components on here. It's much easier and less time consuming to build. It'll stress you out a lot less. Yeah, the compatibility, you may need to tweak the crystal. I would go with the 33 megahertz right off the bat, if I'm honest. Do make sure you've got at least a 16 megahertz 020. You'll find on eBay there's a lot of the 20 megahertz ones. I'd go for one of those and go straight to 33 megahertz, just see how you get on. But maybe order some different crystals. Order yourself, I don't know, a 20, a 25, and then something in between, maybe a 26, a 27, a 28, a 32, etc. You know, they're only, I don't know, £1 each or something, less than £1. So you could order 4 or 5 different crystals at different frequencies, and it's not that hard to get these off. You know, you do need to use hot air. What I did is got a bit of Captain tape around that jumper, 2 or 3 layers, and then this crystal has been off and on here, I would say about 6 times actually, because I had a difference of the crystals. I tried a 40 megahertz just to see if I could get 40 megahertz out of this, and I can't. The 16 megahertz chip won't quite stretch to 40 megahertz. But I bet if I had a 20 megahertz 020 in there, 40 megahertz would probably work. And based on the fact that we had more stability and compatibility with various expansions and things when we used a 33 megahertz crystal, you may find that going to 40 makes it even more compatible. So I didn't explain very well the bit I was trying to talk about there, how the clock relationship to the equations in the CPLD might translate into this working or not working, or being compatible or more compatible. And it's all about, you know, you've got some hard-coded equations, if you like, within there. You know, it's going to do something when a certain signal goes low or high, you know, on the 68K socket here, and just by virtue of adjusting the frequency that comes into this, you just shift something one way or the other, yeah? Because I don't think there's any PLL or anything going. There might be. Stephen may be able to comment. There might be some PLL stuff in here, but I think with this early board here, Stephen's aim, I would get, and I'm not an expert at this, so I'm just guessing based on what I know about the O20, but the aim for this O20 would be to get it to, you know, communicate with the bus here in the right way for the O20, you know, so it's like a protocol, if you like, and the protocol changes subtly between a 68,000 and O20, and then you get to the O30, O40, O60, etc. It gets more complex as you step up through the different processes, but the O20 is going to be subtly more complex than a straight 68,000, and it's how you interface with the reads and stuff to do with memory and all that, and the timing. So, you know, this is like a little gateway. It's a bit of middleware, if you like, in between an O20 and the straight 68K buses here. It certainly worked for me that way. Good success in the A500 and the 2000. Yes, there are certain combinations of things that don't seem to like to coexist together, and as I say, I think that's about impedance and stuff. You know, it's about things not being buffered and things like that. If you stick this in a 500 33 megahertz crystal, it's quite happy with the got-to-go fast RAM board, no worries. So that would give you 8 meg and an O20, and you can just run all your games from floppy that way. Or you could do what I did, is remove the got-to-go fast RAM board, stick an A590 on the side, and again you've got an O20 and you've got the memory and the SCSI from the A590. So you can see I just touched up these silver bits on the top of that there with a little bit of black acrylic paint, so it looks pretty good now, it's presentable. The solder points look a little bit dull. It's because it was one of the guinea pigs, if you like, for the ultrasonic cleaner. You haven't seen that yet. That will be another video. I'll post a link up there once that's public, but that was a gift from my patrons in Discord actually, so yeah, very grateful for that. So it's been super interesting to look at this. You know, thanks very much to Stephen Leary for, you know, spending all this time developing these boards. You know, this was the start of the TerribleFire process, if you like, and it's interesting to see the evolution through the different boards. You know, one of the things I've said throughout this video is there's no local RAM and stuff on here, there's no IDE. That was just like the next evolutionary step. You know, it made sense to just, you know, deal with some of the protocol stuff here and do a feasibility study, if you like, you know, to see, you know, what do we need to do. Well, if you just start with a processor and you don't have IDE and you don't have RAM and all that sort of stuff, you obviously you've got less things to contend with, less issues. You know, you may not, when you're doing something like this, you may not know, am I going to be able to get away with 2 layers, or do I need 4 layers? Yeah, how fast can I go? How stable is it going to be with a 2-layer board, or how stable is it going to be with things laid out a certain way around on the board, etc. And the CPLDs, you know, you might need to, it might be the first time you're using a particular CPLD and you want to see, you know, the effects that has, you know, in terms of speed and reliability and all the rest of it. So it was a stepping stone, and it made perfect sense to just go with an O20 to start with, get the protocol of that working here, and then you take what you've learnt on the with the O20 here and you take it a step forward and move to an O30, and at that point in time you then, you know, start to add things like RAM. Once you're comfortable with the RAM and the general, you know, generally everything's stable, you can then start adding IDE and things like that. And that is exactly what we've seen through the series there. Now it's interesting, I've shown you the 1260, and there'll be the 4060 coming on my channel soon. And I've gone right back to the start here to look at the 520. And at some point over the next few weeks, I'll do a video on the 4060, we'll do a video on the 530, and a video on the 536. There's something interesting to gain from looking at each of them actually, and, you know, again, we're looking at the evolution, you know, throughout the TerribleFire range. So a huge thanks again to Stephen Leary, Mr. TerribleFire. Really enjoyed working on this one. It's only a simple board, but you know what, it has been fun and interesting to look at. If you'd like to support the channel, please see the Ko-fi and Patreon links down below. I'll catch you in the next video.